Hi everyone, my name is Virginia, aka Gigi.
And I'm Victoria.
And this is Mika.
And this is
A Word at the Table.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think a lot of people go through. I think everyone can say that they went through this. It's called church hurt. And church hurt is basically like pain from people from the church and people you don't really expect to get hurt by, but you know, it happens. And so we just wanted to talk about it, unpack it, and just bring God into the conversation. But before we get into the topic about church hurt, we just have an icebreaker question. And the question is, what is it about choices that's hard to make?
I would say like the mental gymnastics of weighing out all the options and like even, okay, lately when I'm like really, really overwhelmed, even thinking about like what I want to eat, like it just overwhelms me. I'm just like, okay, so but I just had McDonald's and I'm trying to do my budget and this is like legit. Sometimes it's just like thinking about all of the little things that could happen, like the variables, boom. Are we feeling like Doctor Strange with the thing? It's too much sometimes.
Where did Dr. Strange be looking into so many?
That's me with lunch. That's
hilarious. I would say for me, like possibly, like kind of like what you said, and I think bringing it to God and like waiting. I think waiting to me is hard because I get impatient and I'm like, God, what should I do? I'm gonna do what I want anyway. Like, it's just, and even if it's a small choice or a big choice, whatever it is, I think the waiting part for me, the options, like you said, like there's so many options. And like also too, you can just kind of be spinning in blackness, thinking about all of the different ways to like how something can go and how like, and it's like, yeah, I think the waiting to hear from God, because sometimes I don't. And then also the options and the many possibilities of whatever choice it might be. I think that's kind of difficult for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think for me, it's knowing that sometimes, like, depending on the choice you make, the consequence can be permanent. So sometimes I go deep into like, okay, if I make this choice, what does this mean? Not about lunch.
I mean,
but sometimes I be stressing about like what I'm hungry, but I have no like desire
appetite
to eat anything.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah.
But that's a separate issue. Like, but yeah, I think just like thinking, okay, if I make this choice, this has real repercussions. And am I seeing all of the angles? Am I seeing all the possibilities? And of course, you don't see all the possibilities because it's just life doesn't work that way. But yeah, I stress about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another part too is like if you get too stressed out about all of the possibilities or whatever the case is, it's like you kind of cripple yourself in making a decision. Like you don't even make a decision at some point. So
I think they say it's like your brain goes into fight or flight, and then there's a third option, freeze. It's like when you just you don't know, you're just like, you know, like.
And I feel like that's the most dangerous. Because then you're just stagnant. You're not doing anything, you know? So, yep. So I guess we'll get into the topic about church hurt. And my first question for my co-host is, why do you think that there's such a stigma attached to church hurt versus like different types of hurt? Like what makes church hurt so different and so hurtful?
I feel like because especially talking to people who have quote unquote left the church, like, oh, I grew up in church, but you know, I don't go anymore. I feel like church hurt is different because you kind of feel like it's on you that everyone is like being mean, or like it's on you that this happened. Like the church isn't wrong. I just don't fit in, so I'm gonna be out. And so it's kind of like you don't put the onus on those people. You put it on you, and like that's why I don't go to church. Cause like
like it's gonna burn up once I walk in the building doors. Like
yeah, that's a good point. I think for me, it's like I think when you are in church, you expect people to be like God. And that's an unrealistic expectation because they're people. People are gonna fail you. They're gonna be just as messed up as people who aren't outside the church, but
sometimes more so.
Right. And I think so, but I think we expect them to be better and do better because they should know better. But oftentimes it's not the case. And for me specifically, like it's not just, I think whenever people are in leadership positions, especially inside the church, I hold them to a higher standard. Because they're still human, but I can't help it but say, okay, well, you're pastor.
You were out in the church. You were deacon.
Yeah, I hold it's harder for me when those people like mess up. It's harder for me to forgive them or find compassion because I'm like, you should know better. Like to whom much is given, much is required. Yes, you should not be messing up like this.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like when they're older too, you're like, but should I be looking up to you? Not the other way around where I'm dropping some gems. Like what is going on here?
It's not even in a sense of like when they mess up, because obviously when somebody messes up and they're like repentful, like, oh, I'm sorry I cheated on my wife, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. It's kind of like when the like elders in the church are almost self-righteous with what they're doing, and it's like this is like they standing strong on this, and it's like, okay, heard you, all right, I'm gonna just go, like and it's like so there's no, this is not gonna change, okay, got it,
yeah. And I think like when someone's older, it's harder for them to accept like there's something that they can change, like there's something that's not right, there's something that they could do better, because they just get stuck in their ways and they just think that I do this, I do all these things, I'm just a religious person, so
I'm right, you are wrong.
So, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like in the Bible, all those religious people that were always like those are the people
that killed Jesus. Those are the people that was like, that one, we don't like him.
And they had all of these rules and all of these things, and then Jesus was like, and like literally telling Jesus himself, like, this is not what you're supposed to do.
It's like, you're gonna do miracles on the Sabbath? Oh no, we don't like this guy. He gotta go.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, like self-righteousness is really something that could trip you up. I think that's
because you don't walk away from that. You don't, I am right, like you don't realize that but you're not God right. Like it's not, you're not doing what God wants you to do. You're doing, you put yourself in some God-like position, and what you feel that you want to do, that's what's right to do. So you're like leading yourself.
And then you just smack God on it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, God.
It's the God brand, but God's like, hold on, I didn't sign off on this. Right. Why are you doing this in my church?
Where did this come from? Yeah. So, what kind of church hurt stories have you heard?
Oh my God, the ones with sexual abuse always hurt me the most.
Oh yeah.
Always hurt me the most, because it's like, especially because I used to work with kids, so it's like, my kids trust me. Like they'll hop up in my car. They're like, like they see me as their teacher. They trust me. And like to think of some people taking advantage of that. And then of course, when I hear that and people are like, oh, I haven't gone to church ever since. I get it. Who am I to be like, oh, I'll try, but like, I get it. That's a type of wound and hurt that only God, like an intimate relationship with God can heal,
Yeah.
And I hear that way too often. Sad. That's not like a one time, especially no shade, especially the Catholic Church. Like my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. I think that's where my mind went too. Like where pastors will or leaders in the church will take advantage. And I haven't heard like so much stories where women take advantage of
True.
Yeah. I don't know if those are just unspoken or if it's just, but I usually hear about men abusing their power. And like I know like people personally who've been through that, and it's like it's not an uncommon thing. And it's sad.
Yeah. I was thinking about women that get pregnant outside of marriage. I think that it's just looked at as like, how dare you, you like a killer, like bring it to the stake. Like it's like such a negative response to it. And it's like, she didn't get pregnant on her own. Like she didn't get pregnant by herself. Like,
and God actually gave her that baby. I'm just saying.
Even when like the guy and the woman are part of the same church, they put more blame on the woman than the man.
Yeah, girl, you too loud right now. You too right.
And even like back in the day, like women would have to apologize.
Yeah,
they would have to go to the church.
Not even, don't say back in the day, because like there are literally stories right now, and hopefully I'm not, certain churches, very big churches, like stories that came out like 2 or 3 years ago of the youth pastor having an inappropriate relationship with one of the girls, and then the girls get pregnant, and this and the third. The youth pastor still has his position and doesn't have to apologize. It's the girl that has to apologize.
Yeah.
I don't understand. But okay. We might have to edit that out because I don't want it to sound too gossipy, like, well.
You didn't say the name of the church or anything like that, so you're fine. But yeah, I've heard those stories. Even like just like the pressure for people to get married. Even if they know that this is not a situation that either of them should be in, there's a pressure for people to get married. It's just like more respect if you're like married instead of
the image.
Single. They're like, oh, he abused you, it's okay, or she abused you, it's all right, work it out. Like domestic violence, like no.
Imagine going to a hospital, right? And they're more concerned about you looking healthy than you actually being right. Like you sit there, you coughing, take this cough drop, but my lungs eat the cough drop. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna need you to stop coughing up in this hospital. All right, you're embarrassing us. And they're like, I need to be looked at though. Like
you go in there with a sprained ankle, they're like, you can walk.
Yeah, come on.
You don't need that crutch.
You've been to this hospital twice. You embarrassing us. I'm gonna need you to heal. All right.
Yeah, that is so true. That's really sad. But I think that's like the approach that I can't even say the old church. I feel like it's still in the modern church too. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's something that will stop. It probably won't. It
won't, because it's like it's the enemy working in the church to kind of like push people who need the church out. Mm-hmm. You're like more so look towards like images and titles and this, that, and the third. And you find comfort in like, oh, I'm a good person because this, that, and the third. You find more comfort in your works as opposed to like actually changing you and then changing other people who need authenticity.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this question, because this is something that my husband brings up a lot. And he's like, whenever a pastor's preaching and they're like, I had this couple come to me in counseling. Like,
and tell the whole business.
Like they share it without sharing who it is, but he always gets bothered by that. And I'm like, because he says, like, it's supposed to be a confidential session, whether like you should not be referring to it in any sort of public setting, even if you're not revealing the name. Yeah. So for him, I think like that's his church hurt.
Oh, that happened to him? That sucks.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's like for me, I see like there's validity to that, right? But should pastors and leaders not share those types of.
They're not supposed to, because first of all, when you're on the pulpit, you're supposed to be led by God. You're not supposed to be sitting there spilling tea, talking about,
which a lot of people do. A lot of people do that. And I feel like, honestly, I understand sharing something to help someone else. Like, oh, this person went through this and this is how I helped their marriage. There's no reason for you to be saying that in a sermon on a pulpit. Like, I don't think that was appropriate at all. I think that that's something he just shared just to share. And it was, even if he didn't say the names, I don't think that that's appropriate setting. Because I do understand sharing something so that people can understand how maybe you worked it out or how you got through it. That's different. That's like discernment. You ask like, oh, can I share this testimony? Like, this is great. You ask the constable, Is that okay? I won't mention your name. He didn't do that, or she didn't do that. And so I feel like that's not right. Yeah, that's not okay. And that's insensitive. Like, I think, yes, you can, if it's under certain circumstances, there's understanding, like you said, with the couple, it's discernment to help someone else. If it's not to bring anyone closer to God, then there was no reason for it. There was no reason for it. So, being messy on the pulpit helps nobody, because like, not only are you hurting the people that you're talking about, you making other people who might want, like Ness can talk about, I'm not coming to this. Or people in the congregation wondering who it is. Yeah, that's like, I think that's nasty.
Yeah, that's true, because like, or even that particular pastor, like sharing, oh, so-and-so had a drug abuse issue, like not so-and-so, like someone had a drug abuse issue, but God healed them, and like, okay, I hear you, but then there are certain details that shared that you could kind of connect. Yeah, because like Brother Patrick in the back, about, and you're like, I think it's Brother Patrick. just because he itched his neck. Maybe he had an itch on his back. He's tweaking right now. Like, nah. People try to validate it. And that's happened to me too. Where someone was just like, yeah, I've gone through this and da da da. And I'm like, who are you talking about? And it just makes you feel like, what? Excuse you? Like, who's to say I even felt comfortable with that? Yeah. Ooh, that is like, I know I always periodically bring that up, but, and I guess Brother Kev said, it depends on your discernment that you get from God, but it's just like, sometimes I don't know where telling my truth ends and then like, kind of talking about somebody else begins, Oh, we talked about that. Yeah. He said it's basically how you approach the situation. He was like, I can go to my sister and be like, oh, Gigi hurt me and this is what happened, or I could be like, yo, Gigi did this. Has she done that to you too? Okay. Like, he was like, it depends on how you're saying it. He was like, it's okay to vent, but he's like, sometimes people aren't venting, it's to gossip and to make more drama. So it depends on your intent. Yeah. Like, if I say I have problems with Gigi, and then I'm trying to sway you to have problems with Gigi too. Draw division in you between like your relationship with Gigi, rather than just like, seeking advice maybe. Yeah. Okay. Unless like, Gigi's like a scammer and it's like, did Gigi also take $500 for you? I just want to know. I'm not trying to gossip, but I'm out here driving. We gotta figure something out. I got my hair done. I got my nails done. Oh, girls talking about me in the church. No, we trying to figure something out. Oh man, that's hilarious. So, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but have you two experienced church hurt? Okay, so I've experienced it. Let me not use words I don't know how to use, like transcendentally, like through other people. Like I've seen how it's affected other people, because like I've grown up in the church. My whole squad is basically, we've all grew up in almost the same church. So I've seen a number of my friends go through their own stuff, and I guess when it came knocking on my own door, I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know how to deal with someone. I don't know how to
Again, I'm trying to figure out how to tell my truth without, telling somebody else's business. But like somebody that I'm working with, somebody that I'm praying with, somebody that I'm trying to grow ministry with is sitting there talking about me. Like I'm praying with her. She's talking about me. She's sitting there going on tour to other people in the church, making me the punchline, like spreading lies too. So it hurt me in a sense of, one, I felt like I couldn't trust her. I couldn't trust the people that she was talking to. It made me not want to do the ministry anymore because all y'all is fake. Like it turned me from a woman to grace to a city girl. Like, why am I sitting here bitter in the church talking about real? Like, like I didn't want to be that person,
Like act up.
Yeah, you gonna get smashed up.
Why am I in here? Why am I in church singing that?
I was bitter, and like I'm still working through that, but like the way it hurt me is kind of like she represented the whole church to me. Like she hurt me, and I felt like I couldn't trust her or anybody that was cackling with her about me. Because like you can't sit there and talk to a bunch of people about me and not one person is like, oh, this is where my mind is going. Because you can't like have a one-sided conversation. You were having conversations with a bunch of people about me. I feel hurt. I'm sitting there trying to, do God's work, teach the kids and stuff like that. And I feel uncomfortable here. I feel bitter here,
Yeah, no, that's valid.
It's one thing if the approach is, okay, I have this problem with Victoria. We talked about it. I'm trying to work through it. Let's, can you give me some advice, rather than like trying to whisper things about Victoria to other people.
No, apparently there were jokes. They were like, wow. It was one commentary about me and like, a punchline, like everything I'm doing is like peculiar and it's funny. And it's like, that hurts me. It makes me feel rejected. And it makes me feel like you don't belong here. It literally, you might as well, it's like, I hear the enemy saying, you don't belong here. Yeah. All right, heard you, I'm out. I'm not trying to come here and be uncomfortable every Sunday. Like, how does my spirit get better by being uncomfortable and bitter every Sunday? No, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I would say for me, some church hurt that I've dealt with, it was basically feeling like if I don't serve, it's like I'm not really a part of the church. Like it was kind of like a work type of environment. And it just felt like people only hit you up to be like, to like save you for like, if like to build that relationship just so that they know when they need something, I'm gonna ask. Like and I really tried not to be like, okay, nah, it's not like that. No, maybe they don't.
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, give people the benefit of the doubt. And then, no, that favor comes, that question comes like, oh, I'm having this. Can you help me here? Can you do this? Like, was that why you were hitting me up? Was that why you were hitting me up? And not saying that I can't serve. Like, I don't mind serving. I don't mind helping. I don't mind doing those things. But when it feels like you're only being hit up for that, and then when you're not involved and you don't hear from people, you're just like,
there's a certain type of loneliness that happens when you just have functional relationships. Like if it's not just like, hey, how you been? Let me care about you as a person. If it's just like, oh, I need this, like if it's just a function, like you my coworker, you my like we're just working together, it's still very lonely, bro. It's still very, very lonely.
Yeah. Wow, that is a gem, that functional.
Yo, stop playing, because I actually got that from an article in Good Housekeeping. It was a whole article, yes. I was reading it, I was like,
Love that.
Oh, if anyone doesn't know, that's Mika's old job.
Yeah, so, I felt like Mika put me on to Good Housekeeping because it's like you were featured in the magazine, and I was like, let me pick up this magazine that my friend in. And I was like, oh,
yeah. Oh, wow, that's deep. Wow. Because I've definitely experienced that. I think for me, like my mind went back to being younger And I went through a phase growing up where I didn't want to wear dresses or skirts. I just wanted to wear pants. And at that time, we were attending a Haitian church, and wearing pants in the church is a no-no.
You might as well come with guns blazing. Like, what are you doing?
How dare you? And they made me feel so bad about wearing pants. And to the point where my mom left the church and she was like, you're not going to shame my daughter. And, you know, we went to a different church, still another Haitian church. But we changed venues, like, but it's, I think that one, like, shaming me about what I wear just because I'm wearing pants. And someone even made a comment, and again, I was pretty young, about my hips. And it's like,
probably a woman, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right.
The arsenal, middle-aged and old Haitian, middle-aged and old church women, they police the absolute crap out of young women's bodies and their attire. It's like, you know what, not even young, because remember that article that I sent you with Erica Campbell? And it's like, mama is wearing full length dress, and they were like, my goodness, how uncomfortable do you want to make me? Like you're not gonna give me anxiety when I'm just picking out my clothes, bro. You're not doing that.
Yeah. I think, and that's something that occurs way too much. Like,
yeah, and I also feel like there's this like pressure for like women not to tempt your brother in Christ, and I'm like, what? Like, how about you tell my brother in Christ to just calm down?
Yeah, that's not my fault.
The fruit of the spirit is self-control. That's included in there.
Yeah, but no, it's me. It's because I had a blouse. Like, I'm the issue, not the fact that the man has a lustful problem.
I'm about to run into every restaurant. Like, how dare you out here making your food smell mad good? I'm walking. I'm trying to live my best life, and you got here. I'm about to just start doing that, bringing all the energy to everything.
Every Cinnabon. Like, how dare you, Cinnabon?
How dare you? Close this up. So people are here on diets, okay?
I'm sorry.
They're gonna be like, oh
no. So yeah.
It's not my fault.
Yeah. So what things have you guys done to get over church hurt? Or like, how are you even processing it? Because for me, I'm still processing it. I'm still going through it. But like, I would say for myself, I'm not associating like a situation with one person or a couple of people with God and what the church is supposed to represent. Like, that's what I really try to do. I'm like, you know what? I know God's character. I know what the church is supposed to be. I know we're supposed to be a people of God. People are supposed to like see something different about us and want to get closer to God. So I really try to focus on who God is and God's love, and not focus on the hurt I've experienced. That's how I've been trying to get, and it's still a process. Yeah. I'm still going through it. I still have my moments where I'm like, but like, you know,
I don't even have to be here. Okay.
I have to bless you with my presence.
Right.
I don't.
I could be sleeping in on a Sunday morning. All right.
Yeah. But I'm like, let me not do that. And on top of that, like, we're a church body. We're supposed to function together. Like, obviously it's just like how people talk about like the body, like your finger is just as important as your nose or whatever the case is. Like, they all have a role to play. So I think about that, and I think about who God is in my life. And so that's how I, take it step by step in getting over church hurt.
Don't let people make you feel like the tonsil. Don't make people feel like you are very okay, I can just go.
that goes back to like the functional relationship that you said, Vicky. Like, if, for example, your finger is hurt and you don't care that it's hurting, and you're like, your body's just like, it's just the finger, though the rest of the body is functioning. Like, that finger is still hurt. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
And you're gonna wonder why you ain't got no fingers left. They all left. They
you gonna know why you can't pick up something, why you can't type.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I think I try not to judge women. Like, if somebody like wears whatever to church, or not even women and men, like, sometimes, especially living in Indiana, people dress down for church. Like, It's not like New York, and also it's not like the Black church. I think the
Black church, that's a Black church thing.
Yeah, they don't really dress up for church. And not that I have anything against it, but when I always dress up when I go to church. I can't help it.
Yeah.
It makes me, I like to dress up for church.
Same, yeah. You know, I'm about to step with my Lord. What you talking about? The drip.
Right.
Big
Exactly. So they're always like, and it's like, I've never seen it this way, but in my church, they're like, "Oh, you're such a fashionista." I'm like, "Oh, really?"
They're trying to hate on you. I
don't know. There's some underlying message there, but
exactly, that's exactly what it is. I ignored it. So whenever people comment to me about what I'm wearing in church, whether good or bad, it's like I don't even process it. I don't even let that in, because really, I think as a child that really traumatized me for a while. But I thank God that my mom really stepped up to defend me in that case, and it like she didn't allow it to continue once she found out about it. Like it was an immediate, oh yeah, we're not going back to that church.
Yeah, because imagine like the bitterness that could like grow within you, and you could be, you know, the age that you are now, and be like, well, that's why I don't go to church. You know, that's all the enemy needs is like plant one seed, and people are always like, oh, this happened, and that's why I don't go. That's why I don't, you know, water my relationship with God. You know, that's why, like, yeah.
Yeah, you know, Rev Kev always says, like, we think that the enemy wants us to sin, but his goal is to separate us from God, separate us further away from him and what his love means to us and how he thinks about us, how he sees us. And I think that's where church hurt is most damaging, because it creates that separation that we're supposed to have, that togetherness. We're supposed to have that intimacy in the church body and with God, and that's it damages it, and sometimes for a lifetime for some people.
Yeah. And I was also thinking about something else Rev says about like giving the enemy a foothold. Like it starts like with a toe, then a foot, then the whole door is open.
Yeah, I always like when he says that. Take a toe, a foothold, and a stronghold.
And so, like, what advice would you give to someone who's going through it, or, you know, processing it in some way, and trying to probably get back into the church, or they are the church, but I mean that back into.
Because I have bad advice. Maybe I have bad advice, but I'm just like, just leave. If it's, you know, if it's heavy, but pray and leave. But like, I don't, maybe because I'm the one who left, but like, I don't believe in being in a place that waters down your spirit, like who, you know, really makes you feel less than what you, like makes you feel lonely in a large place. Like if it's not a good fit, then just go. Like, you know, obviously don't separate yourself from God, but it's just like you said, the church is a body. It's not just a place. If that church is not for you, you don't have to leave the church, period. You could just leave that church. You could just leave that church.
That's a good point.
You know?
Yeah,
that might not be the best advice, but I'm team leave.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like what you said about like talk to God first, because you should say pray about it, and like God will show you, God will tell you.
Yeah.
Like I think you just need to have patience and just ask God, like, do you still want me to be here? Is there another church you want me to go? Is there another church home? And so I just think it just takes that prayer, that time with God and talking to him, and then making a decision from there. Maybe he does want you to stay. Maybe he wants you to reconcile things. Maybe he wants you to leave. It just depends. And I think that every situation is different. But I think going to God with it first.
Because even with my situation, I was like really in it, like annoyed. Like I was like, I do not want to be here anymore. And like my pastor, who's my dad, was like, do you want to step down? Like I didn't say anything to him, nothing to him, but he was like, you want to step down? Like I was just like, yes, I'm good. How you answered? Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I always say don't you shouldn't be led by your emotions. But I think when you're feeling a certain way all the time, like the problem may just like, it's probably like, sometimes I think we'd be like, oh, maybe it's me, maybe I'm too sensitive. I think like, don't invalidate your feelings and try to think, I mean, don't react emotionally, but I think try to look at the situation from a logical place. And I think that's when you can come to make that decision to say, maybe I need to step away and take time to pray. Or maybe I need to step away.
Ooh, come on, bars.
Yeah. My environment. Like, yeah, you need to, like, I'm never a fan of just like, well, you feel bad, like, go ahead and pray about it. No, God gave us emotions for a reason, so that we can, go to him, consult him, like try to find that advice that we need. And I think also sometimes for me, you can ask people outside the church. Like, some of my friends are not church people, and they still have sound advice. And you can use that in, like, of course, again, everything is going back to prayer and making sure that it's in line with what God wants for you and the path that he's putting you on. But I think, like, seek advice outside of that church community if the hurt is in the church, but don't let it separate you from your relationship with God.
That part, yeah,
I agree with that 100%. And I think it is important for us to seek wise counsel, like, and ask God, like, who to share my hurt with. Because sometimes you could share your hurt with someone and they got their own hurt, and it's like their hurt is like coming, and you're just like, whoa, I was sharing about this, and now I got every little story about every little, like, and it's like, okay, maybe this wasn't the right person to share that hurt with. And then you can end up making a decision based off someone else's pain, which had nothing to do with yours. So I think consulting God on who to talk to as well, like getting that wise counsel and just having that, like you said, it could be community outside of the church, and that's okay. But definitely, like you said, first thing is God, whether it's God, do I stay? Do I leave? Who do I talk to about it? That's what's important. So that's my advice as far as dealing with church hurt and not associating it with who God is to you. And so I just want to leave with some verses. Matthew 22:37-40. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And I brought this up because I felt like the loving the Lord, your Lord first. I think that's so important to know God's love for yourself, because if you don't know God's love for yourself, you might be looking for it in your community, or might be looking for it in people, and people will disappoint you. People will 100% disappoint you. People hurt you, right? Like, we're people. We're human beings. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But if you know God's love for yourself and you know God's character for yourself, you won't associate God with how people hurt you. So I just felt like that verse was really important, like knowing God's love for yourself first. And just that second part of love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's hard. I'm still working on that myself, but I know I wouldn't want to hurt anyone in a way that I know would hurt me, like break me down. Like, how would I want to be treated? How would I want to be, dealt with? And like, what would I want someone to tell me if I hurt them in some way? Like, how would I want to be approached? I do think about those things. Now, I'm not 100% perfect with that, but I thought those two verses were those two commandments definitely will help you with like church hurt and dealing with it. And then there was like another verse too about like, oh, if your brother, I think that's in Matthew. Yeah, Matthew 18. Like, if your brother sins against you, like go and tell him about his fault. And I thought that one was also another good verse for this, because it's like, I think the Bible is just so clear on what to do, and we do so many other things. Like, you might post about it, you might go to another group and gossip about it instead of going to your brother or sister in Christ. And I think what's important with that one too is to go to God first, of course, because I think a lot of people react on emotion. They're like, oh, I feel this type of way. I need to talk to this person right now. I need to talk to them. I need to tell them. And it's like, you're reacting and you're emoting instead of just taking that time, forgiving, and then talking to them is important, because if you just talk on emotions and reactions, that conversation is not gonna go anywhere. It's just gonna be flesh-led. So I also wanted to bring that up as well. And yeah, I hope that helps with anyone who's listening about church hurt. Know God's love for yourself, treat people as you would want to be treated. I know that's like a first grade thing, but it's serious. Yeah. And then go to your brother and sister in Christ after you've forgiven them and spoke to God about it, because that, instant, like on emotions, is just not, that conversation won't lead anywhere. So, anybody you want to add anything else about church hurt or tips or whatever?
Going to your brother in emotions not gonna help, and also never going to your brother and just stewing in your saltiness is not gonna help anyone either. So
right, like getting that anger build up. We saw that with Will Smith.
You won't explode on the wrong person.
You'll be smacking somebody up on the Oscars. That's what that.
Why am I catching strays?
When will we get over? I don't think we'll ever get over this.
It's going to be written down in history.
And
that's so sad, because he's done so many great works of art. It's so sad that we focus on that. But yeah, that was pure emotion and acting off of emotion. And I understand emotions are feelings and we should be aware of our emotions, but they shouldn't be they're alerts, but they shouldn't be direction.
Hey, that part, right?
They should not be directing you on how you act.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I like alerts, but not directions. Here's a notification, but I'm not giving you directions. That's good.
Right. So, anything else? Is that all we want to say about church hurt?
Yes.
We're good to go. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We hope you got something out of this. It's blessed you. And this is
A Word at the Table. Church hurt. Yeah.
Church hurt.
Yeah.